Today in Vatican City, they're holding a celebration of the birth of the Roman Catholic Sun-Child. The first thing I find interesting is that they've actually placed the depiction directly underneath the Star of Ishtar, the Eastern Star of the mystery religions. If that isn't blatant enough, you can see that the star is being propped up by an Egyptian obelisk. So straight off you can see that this is a counterfeit copy, a mirror of the real thing. Then of course you've got this giant Kabbalistic tree, and also accompanied by other ancient symbology that should make it absolutely clear that this represents the birth of the sun god of the Babylonian mystery schools. The Feast of the Immaculate Conception that took place just a day before this festival is simply a code for the birth of the Antichrist, or the ripping of the dimensional veil.
And I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth, and he was given the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. He opened the shaft of the bottomless pit, and from the shaft rose smoke like the smoke of a great furnace.
Many people believe the Vatican to be evil and in the hands of the devil himself, the serpent who deceived Eve and Adam and who even now deceives the world. The Vatican knows all about Satan, of course, and the serpent in the garden deceiving. So why would they build the Pope Paul VI audience hall at the Vatican with a design that, when looked at from the rear of the hall, is in the shape of a serpent's head, complete with scaly type skin and a mouth with 2 fangs? Interestingly, the building, built in the mid-1970s, is made of reinforced concrete and is very much like a nuclear shelter. In fact, the statue on the stage of the hall shows Christ resurrecting from a nuclear holocaust. Friends, why in the world would a religious institution do something like that? Why build a building that is so much like a nuclear shelter with a statue of Christ inside ascending from a nuclear holocaust? Why build a building that looks like a serpent when you look at it? And from the outside of the building, it looks again like the serpent's head, facing to the right of the screen here, with just the right eye visible. Now, why do all of this unless someone, some group, is secretly honouring the serpent himself and perhaps expecting some kind of nuclear war even? We have to remember, as I've said earlier, these groups, these satanically inspired organisations, call them the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the New World Order, or whatever, they like to communicate through symbolism. And here we see the symbolism of Satan himself, the old serpent, the deceiver, at home in the Vatican, a supposed Christian body, But in reality, folks, it's anything but. Why build the Parliament building itself to represent the broken down Tower of Babel that is depicted in a painting by Peter Bruegel? The architects actually built the Parliament building to look like the painting by Peter Bruegel of the broken down Tower of Babel. That's incredible. See, the answer is simple. The politicians tell us that in bringing the nations together, they are reversing what they call the Babel effect. Now that's what they say. They say we are reversing the Babel effect. The EU even issued a poster showing the Tower of Babel being rebuilt. Now the 12 stars that surround the tower, notice this, they are inverted to form the head of the occult satanic goat named Baphomet, whom occultists worship. That is on the EU poster that says they are many tongues, but all speak with one voice, reversing the Babel effect brought about by the judgment of God. Now that is a blasphemy.
So much confusion surrounds the legend of the Knights Templar. As with everything, there is an official story, there's a true story, and there's an untold story. The official story is what they want everyone to believe. The quote, true story is the version put out there to make those in search of the truth think that they found the truth and stop there. The true story is purposefully controversial or sinister sometimes to make it that much harder to resist. The untold story is the one that's actually based on reality, but the problem is that it seems so far removed from both the official story and the true story that it ends up going nowhere. That's why it's the untold story. It's like a piece to the puzzle that no one has a clue what to do with because they don't even realize that it's a piece to the puzzle to begin with. That's how the real truth can be hidden in plain sight. This will be my third video on the Baphomet, and this one involves the Knights Templar. Among the many criminal charges that King Philip IV brought against the Templars were heresy and idolatry. They were accused of worshiping something called the Baphomet. Today we hear that name and we think of a horned, goat-headed hermaphrodite. If asked who it is, most Christians would probably say the devil. And they're right, in a way. The problem is that they have in their minds the image of a devil that's completely false and misleading. But that's all part of the plan, because the real devil, the real enemy of man, and the Most High God looks nothing like the image of the Baphomet we've been given. But as long as you don't know that, as long as you think Satan looks like this big hairy hermaphrodite, you'll never see the real enemy for who she is, or who she claims to be even. Before I move on, I would like to invite you to watch my previous two videos on the topic of Baphomet. The first one gets into the biblical symbolism found in the Baphomet image. The second video uncovers some of the ways the ideology behind the Baphomet manifests in society and in the entertainment industry. Briefly touching on some of those things that I've discussed in those previous two videos that I mentioned, before discussing the Knights Templar connection. Deuteronomy 4, chapter 4, verse 15 through 19 gives us a clue of what the Baphomet embodies, and it is the amalgamation of everything that the Most High God has warned us against worshiping, on earth and in the heaven above. Take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for ye saw no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest ye corrupt yourselves, and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air, the likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters, beneath the earth, And lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the hosts of heaven, should be driven to worship them and serve them. So Eliphaz Levi, which is not really his real name, but Eliphaz Levi is the person who drew this Baphomet image. From Wikipedia, Eliphaz Levi, born Alphonse Louis Constant, February 8, 1810, and died May 31st, 1875, was a French occult author and ceremonial magician. Eliphaz Levi, the name under which he published his book, was his attempt to translate or transliterate his given names, Alphonse Louis, into the Hebrew language. This is a note from me. Eliphaz did claim that his drawing was of the Baphomet of the Knights Templar, but in my opinion, since Eliphaz Levi was not born until 1810, which is almost 500 years after the Knights Templar were dissolved, his drawing of Baphomet is very unlikely to have anything to do with the real Baphomet, or Sophia, that the Templar were accused of worshipping. From Hermetic.com, in the eyes of the Western world, Eliphaz Levi's illustrations of Baphomet is a representation of the Christian devil, the source of all evil. The French occultist's illustration from his magnum opus, Transcendental Magic, shows a winged, goat-headed creature, a pentagram on his forehead, surrounded by occult symbols, all iconography associated with the devil. A pitchfork and a barbed tail are all that would be needed to complete the stereotype. So this is that stereotypical image of the devil that we receive. But as I mentioned earlier, that is a false image given to us. From TemplarHistory.com, somewhere between the years of AD 1118 through 1120, King Baldwin II granted the group quarters in a wing of the royal palace on the Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It has been generally accepted that for the first 9 years of their existence, the Templars, as they came to be known, consisted of 9 members. In 1310, the Templars were officially dissolved by Pope Clement V at the Council of Vienna. I think that's Vienna. Although the Templars were not found guilty of the crimes they were charged with, idolatry being one, it was felt that the reputation of the order had fallen to so low a state as to warrant dissolving the order. On March 18th, 1314, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake for having recanted his earlier confessions of guilt. The Baphomet mythos. Central to the accusations brought against the Knights Templar was that they worshipped an idol, said to have taken the form of a head or sometimes a black cat. Although the popular mythology related to the Templars gives this idol the name of Baphomet, the fact remains that in all the testimonies against the Templars, the term Baphomet was used but twice. From northernway.org, Templarism is a form of esoteric Christianity. Perhaps one could call it underground Christianity. Sometimes Templarism is inaccurately called Gnosticism, later called downright heresy by the Church. As well we know, secret codes and ciphers were used to conceal certain of their most dangerous doctrines, such as the existence of a co-creator, a goddess partnered with God the Father. This is a note from me. I believe it is very accurate to call Templarism Gnosticism. As you will see, they have a lot in common. The great goddess Sophia was this being, and it was she who incarnated as Mother Mary, and perhaps Mary Magdalene, though it is unclear since both Mary and Mary Magdalene lived at the same time. Some theories are that the Shekinah was Mother Mary and Sophia was Mary Magdalene. Surely it is not mere coincidence that both women bore the same name. Miriam, later derived into Mary, its Greek form. From northernway.org again, the Atbash cipher proved that Baphomet was a code word, a cipher for the name Sophia. You can also see this on TemplarHistory.com. You'll see that the Atbash cipher, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, says Baphomet one way, and reversed it results in Sophia. So from The Goddess, the Grail, and the Lodge by Alan Butler, page 221 through 223, there are clues as to the true nature of the beliefs that the highest members of the Knights Templar espoused, into which initiates proved worthy and capable were gradually brought. These existed from the very start of the institution and were part of the original rules of the order. They had been drawn up by Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. The Templars never lost faith in Bernard. It is said that during his long captivity, Jacques de Molay composed a prayer to and concerning Saint Bernard. Bernard had remained the single most important individual to Templarism for nearly 200 years. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, presumably with the full sanction and agreement of the original Templar Knights, had dedicated the knightly order unequivocally to the Virgin Mary. All its endeavors were undertaken in her name, and it was this name that they cried as they went into battle. The Templars were, from the beginning to end, a Marianist brotherhood. Bearing in mind Saint Bernard's own reverence for Mary, or whatever she actually represented in his mind and heart, it is likely that the original Templars, and perhaps the whole order for 200 years, maintained a common belief with Bernard. Source: America, Nation of the Goddess, The Venus Families and the Founding of the United States by Alan Butler and Janet Walter, page 96. Bernard's adoration of the Virgin Mary knew no bounds, and it all started with a most unusual encounter when he was a young priest. According to his own words, Bernard had been praying before a statue of the Virgin when she lifted her hand to her breast. Drops of milk then fell from her breast into Bernard's open mouth. And there are images of this event that you can find if you search for Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. If you search for his name, they will pop up. You don't have to search milk squirting or anything. From that moment on, he committed himself exclusively to the Virgin Mary, and it was something he passed on. Although historians often point to the veneration the Knights Templar had for John the Baptist, in reality, their patron was always the Virgin Mary. Almost all Cistercian abbeys were named for her, as were many, if not most, Templar churches. Back to The Goddess, the Grail, and the Lodge again. The bearded head mentioned in the original charges is interesting, and it may represent the vestiges of a much earlier and essentially pagan belief. The Celts, in particular, had a cult of the severed head. Examples of sculpted stones can be found all over the Celtic world. This head may also have related John the Baptist, for whom the Templars had a special reverence. But of course, that's the official story. Even more likely is the suggestion that the bearded head could have represented the Green Man. Effigies of the Green Man are to be seen in many Gothic churches and cathedrals. Generally speaking, the Green Man is simply a face. He is usually depicted as being composed of branches and leaves, and quite often has tendrils of plants emanating from his mouth and nostrils. Few historians now doubt that the Green Man is a hangover from the days of nature worship, and in particular, worship of the goddess. Here's a note from me. The green man is also named Cernunnos. This is Apollyon in your Bible. Of special interest is the name that Philip's representative said the Templars attributed to this head, namely Baphomet. The word Baphomet has a very special meaning. As early as 500 BC, Hebrew writers and scholars had begun to use a code which has come to be known as the Atbash cipher. A full realization of the importance of the Atbash cipher only came to light with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Essene in particular used this method of hiding specific truths. The Atbash cipher is a fairly simple substitution cipher. It was the highly respected New Testament scholar Dr. Hugh Schonfield who realized exactly what Baphomet meant when the Atbash cipher was applied to it. In all probability, the name Baphomet had nothing to do with the mysterious bearded head of the Templars, and the confusion may have been due to the ineptitude on the part of Philip IV's interrogators. A reminder, the Templars were accused of idolatry, and King Philip IV had interrogators to get them to confess of their crimes, their alleged crimes. However, the word was still of tremendous importance to the Templars because once it has gone through the mill of the Atbash cipher, Baphomet comes out as Sophia. The Templars were dedicated to the Virgin Mary, for whom they showed what amounted to an obsession. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux had deliberately manipulated the Catholic Church of his day to virtually deify Mary. The Templar order was accused of worshipping Baphomet, which we know is a code word and which really means Sophia. Sophia in turn is often represented as a dove. The dove has represented the goddess for thousands of years. It seems more and more likely that the true religious imperatives of the Templars meant that, in 14th century Christian terms, they were guilty as charged.
The Knights Templars are at the heart of this conspiracy to rule the world, otherwise known today as the New World Order. Jesuits really are the revived Knights Templars.
These counterfeit crusades that they hold. So beware of these dangerous doctrines of demons that are coming into the church.
It's prophetic that God's using you to break things open. In Jesus' name,
Jeesuksen nimessä
we declare the spirit of religion
me julistamme, että uskonnollisuuden
that blocks the glory, the head be cut off.
että sen pää leikataan nyt poikki.
Decapitate.
That he who occupies the top of those mountains can literally shape the agenda that forms nations.
This crusade, this war on terrorism.
The Knights Templars. In Jerusalem, the Templars began to deviate further and further away from the practices of Christianity. They learnt the secret arts of the Kabbalah, an ancient form of Jewish magic, along with its dark rites and rituals. In 1717, the Templars made their reappearance in Europe. They had grown in both number and strength, and were now ready to coin a new identity, free from their reputation of the past, and given credibility by none other than the monarchy and aristocracy of England. And the name they chose for themselves was a name that would be known by many, but understood by a few. This new name, the Freemasons.
To order, brethren, to receive the most merciful, the Grand Master.
equal.
Indeed, Brother Washington. All Freemasons meet as equals, and we have an opportunity to create a nation in the very essence of Masonic morality. It would be wonderfully symbolic, don't you think?
You'll be wanting to put the all-seeing eye on our banknotes next.
You think I'm taking it a bit far?
Please don't ask me questions like that, Brother Franklin. You know I cannot tell a lie.
Oh, come on, Brother Washington. Everybody lies occasionally, surely, especially politicians.
Not me. Not even so much as an alternative fact.
But we must all be aware of fake news.
The people must be free to think what they like as well. We can have no thought police in our new society. The foundation stone of our new nation built on all those principles that we hold dear.
The plans for our new capital city already have a very Masonic feel to them, yeah?
Candidate for initiation into the order, I'm giving him a little introduction into some of our mysteries. These two gentlemen are founding an entire nation built on our principles.
There we have great promises for our new nation. You know, I wonder if other presidents after me will also be Freemasons.
Many will be. And Freemasonry will become embedded in the American culture. And the eye will appear on the banknotes.
Oh, God.
These principles will be honored with a gift from your French brethren. A gift that will be a welcoming beacon to the poor and oppressed.
This is the statue we are giving you.
It's a bit small, isn't it?
Oh, this is a maquette. The real thing is bigger. Much, much bigger. I call her Liberty Enlightening the World.
Catchy.
America will produce a great many great Americans from many different walks of life and many different fields, and many will be Masons. Sportsmen, actors, writers, soldiers, filmmakers, businessmen, inventors, astronauts.
What on earth is an astronaut?
No, they're not.
I don't follow.
Well, they're not on Earth, they're in space. In fact, Brother Buzz Aldrin was the second man to walk upon the surface of the moon.
That's the best thing I've heard this evening.
What, that a Mason walked on the moon?
Man on the moon. Amazing. But don't forget the musicians. Do not forget the musicians.
Known as that rule of three again. The 3 degrees.
Freemasonry has burned as a blazing fire through the last 3 centuries.
As permanent master of these 3 lodges, I now call on my deputy masters.
Most Worshipful Grand Master, on behalf of the Brethren of Royal Somerset House.
Most Worshipful Grand Master,
our ceremonies and forever remind us of our incomparable heritage, and the birth of organised Freemasonry.
Stressing the deep and sincere loyalty and affection felt by the Brethren of the United Grand Lodge of England for their Grand Master.
We leave the Royal Albert Hall even more proud of our ancient institution.
Most Worshipful Grand Master, I humbly ask you to complete the initiation of this worthy candidate for Freemasonry.
I hereby read the text of a letter sent today to Buckingham Palace. May it please your Majesty, we, the representatives of over 200,000 Freemasons, under the United Grand Lodge of England, most respectfully express our continuing loyalty to your Majesty's throne and person in this, the 66th year of your long and distinguished reign, of His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, as our much loved and greatly respected Grand Master. We humbly thank God for preserving our order and fervently pray His blessings on your Majesty, so that our loyal devotion to your Majesty may long continue. Given at the Royal Albert Hall this 31st day of October, Anno Domini 2017. Her Majesty has been pleased to reply in the following terms. The Queen has asked me to thank you for your kind letter of loyal greetings on behalf of the representatives of the Freemasons under the United Grand Lodge of England, which are being celebrated on the 31st of October at the Royal Albert Hall. Her Majesty appreciated your thoughtfulness in writing as you did.
I had the pleasure of meeting 136 Grand Masters visiting from overseas at Freemasons Hall yesterday. Today, though, we are a meeting of more than 4,000, gathered from all around the world, from our own constitution and beyond.
Now, at its very core, this issue seems to tie right into the Knights Templar. And I know that sounds very strange from the get-go, but honestly, this deception that's coming into the church is actually tied to the Jesuit Knights Templar, the government of the Order of the Temple of Solomon. I mean, not only are we in the time where everyone's saying, you know, is there going to be a third temple? And then in 2013, it comes to light here that the Knights Templar are back, you know, not that they ever went away, but they've come back into the public light. The Sovereign Magistral Order of the Temple of Solomon. 2013 AD. It's fully restored as an independent sovereign subject of international law in 2013, embodying the authentic Templar heritage. And we literally have a whole website here which is dedicated to all of these official documents, legal documents mind you, and the missions. This is what I want to show you, this Templar spirituality. And this is how this links with this deception that we're seeing, the worship of the goddess, the reverence of the divine feminine, Gaia. The temple rule proves that the Knights Templar were always dedicated to honouring the divine feminine principle as the spiritual feminine aspect of God. So you can see how this ties to the Roman Catholic Church, to the Jesuits, to Allah, the moon goddess, and to all of these false religions, but also this pagan New Age, which is actually the Old Age Babylon agenda, and the throwing out of this masculine. We see all these attacks on God and the Old Testament and the truth of God, and turning into this airy-fairy, emotional, experiential deal without boundaries, without restrictions, without commands. And all of this stuff is tying into, when you come to its very core, the conspiracy at its very heart of the New World Order, the Antichrist, the paganism, the Babylon agenda, New World Order, is actually rooted in the Knights Templar, who never went away, but now in 2013 have officially come out into the public and declared themselves sovereign, a sovereign entity without territory, but sovereign nonetheless. So it's all about Gnosticism and Christian mysticism, the divine feminine. The uniquely ancient and diverse heritage of Templar spirituality was fully disclosed to the Vatican and officially endorsed by the Roman Catholic Church. Authentic Templar spirituality is a form of esoteric Gnosticism which is wholly compatible with the canonical Christian mysticism of classical Catholicism. Gnostic spirituality primarily concentrates on personal divine communion through the Holy Spirit. Here we go, look, Templar chivalry, look at this. This is the picture of the Pope with all the world leaders of religions, of false religions. Hinduism, Islam, Baha'i. And this is what they are showing. And at the bottom of the page we can see all of these emblems which say a lot. Pontifical protection, recognized by 5 Vatican papal bulls as Templar guardians of the church. Cooperation with Islam. Look at that, cooperation with Islam as a tool of the Jesuit Knights Templar. Look at this. The Knights of Saladin under Templar sovereign patronage. Diplomatic relations with the United Nations with the crest of Rome. Oh my goodness me. Look at this, United Nations. This is where all of these agendas are coming to. So, and remember with the United Nations that they have those books on New Age spirituality, Alice Bailey and all of these people who were involved in this Gnostic counterfeit spirituality of the Antichrist. And this is very similar. This logo is very similar to what we see on some of the big Christian, so-called Christian broadcasting networks at the very top. But with this fire and water. So we see on a lot of these big organizational level, a lot of Illuminati symbolism. And what it is essentially, remember with the Knights Templar, this is dominionism. This is dominion theology about taking over the world. So this explains the influx of false doctrine of Jesuit infiltrators into churches, into the mainstream Christian media, and all with this core belief of the Holy Grail, the divine feminine Gnosticism that they are really pushing onto churches and losing those boundaries. They're advertising it as something like in Hollywood, you know, we need to get out of this box and we need to, you know, forget all the old stuff. We need to free ourselves, liberate ourselves, liberation from the old into this new spirituality, which is a lot more humanistic and it's a lot more divine, and you feel more, you experience more, and that's the cheese on the trap that they're trying to pull people in. I mean, yes, there are certain good things to Reformation, but they are staging a counterfeit Reformation, which is a Knights Templar Gnostic Reformation, and they're pulling people into these horrific scenes which I showed at the beginning of this with Bethel music and all of these people that have counterfeit revivals, counterfeit prophecies, counterfeit signs and wonders. These groups that are actually pushing a Kundalini spirit. These counterfeit crusades that they hold at these top levels, which are coaxing and coercing people into a counterfeit spirit